If you're listening to this show, there's a good chance you're as big a Denys Cowan fan as I am. Or maybe not just as big, but close enough. And for purposes of this conversation, you need to know that there is a Kickstarter going on right now, and it's called Graphic Samurai, The Art of Denys Cowan. This over 300-page art book is being compiled right now by author Michael Stradford, and he sat with Denys Cowan for over 10 hours of interviews and went through his archives to find some of the coolest comic art you're going to find. I mean, pages from Black Panther, The Question, not to mention the whole co-founding of the Milestone universe. Maybe we'll see some pages from that Bible in this book. And as I filmed this, you've got about a week to get your pledges in to secure your copy of this art book. You definitely don't want to miss out. So hit the link in the description of this show, or just visit comicsaredope.com/Denys Cowan art. That's comicsaredope.com/Denys Cowan art. Well, guys, we got a special treat today. I don't really know how else to intro this episode. We've got a returning guest. We've got a new guest, but both very, very, I'm excited to have them here. But if you know me, you know I'm a big fan of Milestone Media. You know if I'm wearing this hat, I'm probably talking to somebody associated with the brand. And of course, today we've got the first founder of Milestone Media, as Joe Illich likes to call him, Mr. Denys Cowan. And we are here to promote, celebrate Graphic Samurai, the art of Denys Cowan. And so we're here with Denys Cowan, as well as the author of the book and founder of Gizmo Press, Mr. Michael Stradford. So just wanted to welcome you both to Comics Are Dope. How are you?
Good.
Great, man.
That intro, Joe Illich, the founding father, makes me sound like Ben Franklin or somebody. I've always wondered about that. I always wondered, like, is he like George Washington? Is he like one of those founding fathers? It's like, oh my God. But I'll take whatever compliment I can get. So
Right. Yeah, no, Joe wants to make sure everybody knows that it was your idea first.
no,
So
he's great. Joe's awesome. We love Joe.
I do too, man. So I wanted to talk to you guys. Just obviously, we're here to promote Graphic Samurai, the art of Denys Cowan. So you guys who were listening to the audio, you heard the promo before we came into this episode. But this is a Kickstarter campaign that is going, and you guys are basically put together a 300-page art book celebrating your 5 decades in comics. Not to make you sound like a founding father or anything.
What
But
is he?
Michael, can you tell us a little bit about how this project came together?
Well, Dennis and I have been friends for a long time. I've always admired and appreciated his work, as most people do. He generally has a lot of disdain for his work. He has to have some distance before he can really acknowledge how nice a piece may be. Fortunately, his wife, Kathy, has always known how talented Dennis is and how well regarded he is in the industry. And it was actually her suggestion to Dennis that it was time to do the book. And fortunately, she suggested me to be the one to put it together, which I was happy to do because I know his work intimately, and my access to him has always been solid. So. For me, I'm sure it was easier for me to say yes than it was for Dennis to say yes.
Yeah, Dennis, I mean, when I look at, well, we've had conversations. When I have conversations with anyone about you, or I watch your interviews, right? There's always a bit of self-deprecation, right? Like, and sometimes I think that's just like humor to kind of ease the room a little bit. But there definitely does seem to be a hesitancy to look back and to look at your work. How hard was it of a sell for Kathy to get you to do this?
Very, very. I mean, because Mike Stradford and I talked about it previously, like years ago, about doing something like that. It never came together. And I've had other people approach me, frankly, about doing something like this. And it's just like, I just don't like walking over my own footsteps or retracing my own footsteps too much. Even though I do some cover recreations and I'll copy Deflock for hardware and I'll do different things like that. I don't really like revisiting old things that much. And what an art of book is that's all it is. It's just revisiting your old stuff, and then you got to look at it again and tell stories about it and think about it and, live with it in a book forever. So it was a lot. But this time, I just thought it would be much easier for me to do it if I just let it go. Right. So Stratford handles everything. Kathy, handles stuff, but Stratford is doing the whole book, really. And he's just asking me to supply him with things and to not get in the way. So I try to not get in the way of my own book. But if it was up to me, there would probably be no book because I'm like, I'm still working. What do you need a book for? Let's go.
Well,
You
I'm
know?
glad it's not up to you.
Yeah. Yeah.
Uh, so, Michael, I mean, you've got the task of going through these thousands of pages of art, some that we've seen, plenty of it that we haven't. And you've got to boil this down to, 300 or so pages. How difficult a task is that?
Well, it's challenging, but I mean, I scanned over 2,000 images, and you can, in short order, you can see what was an early preliminary, what was the the I guess final preliminary to what was the pencils to what was the ink. So then you can start kind of discerning where to go there. But the general structure of the thing is I scanned all the art, made notes, gave our designer, Jason Medley, who used to work at Milestone in the original Milestone iteration. He's the book designer. So I give him the images with suggestions on where some of the stuff will go. Uh, he'll do that. We'll give it to Denys to review, and we'll make adjustments based on Denys's notes, and then we'll just kind of go from there. Because I'm sure there will be times when Denys will say, "Well, there's too much of this and not enough of that," or "I've got a better example of this than that," and we can swap that stuff out. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's cool to do it because even though it's a lot, I love art. I love comics art. And I've always appreciated artists, and Denys has such a unique voice that I always feel like I'm seeing something new, even when it's images that I've seen before. So, there's no stress to me in going through that and figuring out what the contents will ultimately be.
Yeah, for sure. No, Denys, you've got to be one of the most interesting people in comics, right? Like, I don't know. Sometimes I feel like it's funny. No, sometimes I feel like a little kid, like like the kid gets around like grandpa, and it's like, oh, I want to hear whatever the stories, right? I was just reading Big Jim and the White Boy, David Walker's book, and there's like a point in that book where it's like Huckleberry Finn and Jim sitting down telling Jim's grandkids stories. But that's how I feel listening to your interviews, right? As someone who didn't live through some of this stuff, or I lived through some of it, but I just wasn't aware, right? I found out about Milestone specifically, though I had watched Static Shock as a kid. I didn't know there were comics until I was an adult.
Oh,
And
right.
so around the time I was starting this YouTube channel was when I was discovering Milestone. So all that coverage just came from me, like seeing this and be like, oh snap, I didn't know this was there. I hope there's more of it someday. And then there was. And so that's where the announcement came from.
Yeah.
But for me, it's like when I'm listening to you speak, I can't remember who it was that said this to me. I don't know if I was in a private conversation or if I was just listening to someone else interview, but they were like, Denys has the sharpest memory in comics. And like just listening to you like recount different rooms you were in, different places you've been, um, it is very much interesting to me. And so for as much as I'm excited to look at some of this art, I'm also really excited for the stories that are going to accompany these pieces. And you guys sat for what, 10 hours of interviews preparing for this project?
It was 10 hours. It was 10 hours of interviews. It was Mike would come over to my house and we'd sit up in my studio that I'm sitting in now. And he would interview me, asking me questions about my whole life from, growing up in Queens to my latest project. And that was like it was like 10 weeks of an hour interview per week, and he did it. I didn't know he was filming it to show to people. I certainly would have acted differently than I did. But nonetheless, if people really want to get all those stories and stuff, if they want to hear a lot of that kind of material, if they get the bonus packages with their Kickstarter thing, they'll get the 10 hours of interviews and 10 hours of stories of me just going on and on and on about the different things that happen. Maybe it'd be a bit too much. I don't know.
Yeah,
Nah.
they won't get the whole 10 hours, but there's like 30 different essentially episodes.
Okay,
Uh,
great. That's even
yeah,
better. So good.
yeah,
You
they
don't need
talk
10 hours of that, but you'll get
about
30 episodes of it. So that's good.
Yeah, and they average a couple minutes,
Yeah. So good.
but they're themed, there's him talking about Milestone, him talking about, working with Neal Adams, him talking about BET. I mean, just
Steranko,
all kinds of different things. Yeah,
Vinnie Coletta,
right.
which is people bounce back to me going, man, I know that Vinnie Coletta story. Oh my God. It's like,
Yeah, I think that story had gone around, but there wasn't a name attached to it for a while. So now it's more salacious.
yeah, I'm the name.
But so this book is a career retrospective. And it's funny, like the story is always told, right? Like Derek Dingle got you into comics. You guys were in like third grade together,
Right,
reading New Gods and whatnot.
right.
Um, but after that, it's like, and Dennis went to Continuity Studios, right?
Yeah,
I'm like,
no,
that's a
that's not.
huge
I
gap.
mean, it's a huge gap because I was in elementary school. So there isn't a whole lot to tell,
Right.
except I could say, and then after that, I would go to my local drugstore or candy store. It's actually a candy store, and it was located about a half a mile away. I would walk there on Farmers Boulevard to the store that had the old-fashioned spinner rack. And on that spinner rack, I saw different things like Luke Cage, Hero for Hire, and Captain America and the Falcon, drawn by Sal Buscema, right? Now I knew the Falcon looked like a black superhero to me, so I got that. And I
Mhm.
got Luke Cage, Hero for Hire. And I was that kid who put them in his back pocket and went to school and sat against the chain link fence and read those comic books. But and didn't play with a whole lot of other kids because I wasn't really athletic. I couldn't do sports or stuff like that. Not like the other kids, not like my friends. But I could draw and read comic books, so I would just spend my time doing that. And Derek by that time had moved my later years in elementary school. So I was pretty much on my own, but I became a devoted devourer of comics. So I engineered my way into going to art and design from junior high school. But even in junior high school, I'm still drawing. I'm still trying to study comic books. I'm buying Savage Sword of Conan, and I'm studying John Buscema and Alfredo Alcala. I'm that guy. I'm buying um, the Giant Treasury edition of Barry Smith's Conan. Mike knows what I'm talking about, with him on the cover, swinging an axe and stuff and all the bodies. That stuff was profound to me. I picked up Steranko's History of Comic Books. I remember seeing it in stores and buying both volumes. So those years in between were just full of just me downloading as much comic book stuff and drawing all the time. I sucked, but I was still drawing all the time and filling up, pads with comic books and comic book drawings.
Yeah. So one of the questions I had for you was just like, when did you know? Right. Like, I feel like there's a point where people decide, oh, I'm going to pursue this as a career. But just listening to you, it's almost like, was there ever a time where comics wasn't the goal?
There was never a time when there was never a time when like I wanted to be a fireman or I wanted to be a doctor or anything like that. Or, I just never, none of those professions ever seemed, no, comics was it. I was lucky in that comics kind of discovered me at such a young age.
Mm.
So once it got its hooks in me, I didn't even think about doing anything else other than being a professional artist. So maybe it wasn't specifically comics, even though I was a comic book fiend. I just wanted to explore all aspects. So if I could be a commercial artist and draw storyboards and do stuff like, Neal Adams did a continuity, I'd be happy doing that. If it turned out to be comics, I was going to be happy doing that. Just as long as if I could have been a magazine illustrator at the time, I would have done it.
Mm,
So, but it was always art for me. It was never anything else.
nice, nice. And so with that, you kind of engineered your way um, into art and design and into that internship at
Yes.
continuity, and
Yeah.
things just kind of took off from there. So when I spoke to Priest, right, like we were talking about just kind of his own groundbreaking career in a sense, right,
Sure.
being the first black editor in
He's
the Big
amazing.
Two, right, and but when he says that he basically wasn't aware that he was like the first black anything. He was just like trying to do
Just
the job,
working. Yeah,
right?
he's just
Like,
working. That was him.
were you aware of your race in that way, like as you were trying to make a name for yourself?
At first, I didn't think about it that much. Like my first 5 or 6 years in comics, I'm just trying to do comic books, just like everybody else. I'm trying to do them like Joe Rubenstein or Carl Potts or anybody, Ralph Reese, all those guys up in continuity. That's all I was trying to do. I wasn't thinking about being black or anything else. Um, I was thinking about being a kid, trying to get into comics. That's all I wanted. Reality slaps you in the face, even though I had had several incidences up to then to show me that, things aren't going to be quite for you like they are for other people, always. I still wasn't thinking like that. Um, um, but I became very aware of it when a couple of things happened in the 90s. I mean, the early 80s, well, the late 80s, one, I had a conversation with Steranko, which I've talked about.
Mm,
And two, there was like a revolution going on. If everyone remembers, like the late 80s, Do the Right Thing, Living Color, In Living Color, the rock group Living Color, right? There was a
mhm,
lot of stuff going on. She's Got to Have It, uh, the Robert Townsend movies. Like there was a lot of things happening in Black culture, but nothing happening in Black comics or for comic books, nothing like that. So it was a chance to, then I became very aware of bringing that kind of energy and doing something like that. And then it's like once my eyes open, you can't close them.
right. Now, I
So
saw in an interview somewhere, right, it said that you kind of were always looking for opportunities to work on black characters. Um, because I know some people have felt like pigeonholed, right? Like, oh, I got to be the black guy doing black stuff, right? But you kind of relish those opportunities. Why was that?
because like, who would want an opportunity to draw their own people in a heroic atmosphere and in a heroic way? I never thought I was being pigeonholed into doing anything. I thought it was a tremendous opportunity, you know, um, especially, oh, well, these white artists don't really want to draw Power Man and I at this, and they don't want to draw this and that and the other. No problem. I got you. I'll do it. And we'll make it really work. Now, I don't know if that was the case, but that was a bit of my attitude. Um, I was always happy to take Power Man and Iron Fist or Steel or any of those characters and give it and just really do it. I've often said that a lot of people can sit there and draw Superman, and I could be the 4,458th best Superman artist ever, you know, or I can create characters myself, or I can bring a different flavor to underutilized Black characters, and let's see what happens then. I'd rather be on that side of the ledger than the other side of being the best Superman artist. So there's nothing wrong with that. That's just not where I saw myself. But you know what? I could do those comic books and still be one of the best Superman artists. So there you go.
True, true. Like you've done all of that. You've done all. I was going through just in preparation for today, just looking at a lot of different books you've done, right? Of course, I was reading White Tiger backups from Spectacular Spider-Man, uh, which were fun.
Yes.
Um, but going through all your work, right? Like I was looking, just like trying to say, like, how would I define Denys Cowan's style, right? Like, and I don't know that I have an answer, right? Maybe Michael has a better answer than I could come up with. But when I look at your work, right, it's like you make it look easy, but it's not easy. Like you'll look at the lines and it almost looks like a few scribbles here, a few scribbles there. But then you kind of back up a little bit and it's just like, I don't know how he did that with that form. Like, I don't know how he got those likenesses and made it just look like, whatever, some lines, right? Like, but how would you describe what you're going for when you're put pencil to the page?
Hmm. Well, I could give some high-minded answer like, I'm just really going for truth in art. But the real answer is, I'm just copying my heroes. So, if you think I do something really well, then you're looking at me trying to imitate Walt Simonson, or I'm trying to do my best Sergio Topi, or I'm doing my best Dino Battaglia, or God damn it, I'm gonna be John Buscema and Jack Kirby today if it kills me. You know, you'll see me just trying on different shoes. So usually I'm just trying to channel whatever I'm feeling at the time,
Mm.
onto the page. Um, but thank you for saying I can draw random lines. You pull back and they all make sense because I'll take that.
No problem. Oh,
But
Michael,
maybe
you're
Mike
muted.
Stradford he'd have a better explanation of my style because I couldn't even tell you really what my style is. It's like no
Well,
style.
I think the connecting thread is something that you mentioned briefly. He said it's whatever I'm feeling.
Yeah.
Dennis draws with a lot of passion and feeling and emotion, and that's what you get on the page. In addition to what Jack Kirby told him in their one meeting is always draw with power.
Oh, power
So
too.
so he doesn't phone it in. He's invested in what he's doing, and I think sometimes when he's frustrated, you might be able to get a sense of the frustration from the way that the energy that the page projects, and other times when he's just in a groove, you get that through that page as well. But I like to think of Dennis's art as, particularly when we start talking about him and inkers, as him being a jazz musician. It's like
Mm.
a song has a form, but how that song is ultimately executed varies from musician to musician.
Yes.
And some are very rigid and very traditional and content, or most successful when they're in a very specific traditional box, whereas others are more fluid, and they kind of go where the muse takes them, and it may start one way, but the energy and the vibe encourages them to go another way. And Dennis is more in that box as opposed to the traditional, you know okay, Jim Lee's the hot flavor, so everybody's doing Jim Lee, and,
Oh
and you
God.
know
He's so
and
great, but I
yeah,
can't even
God bless Jim Lee.
yeah, he's
you
awesome,
know
but I can't imagine doing anything like that.
yeah,
No,
yeah,
no flavor of the month, no following anybody like that.
right,
Nobody, no style that's hot right now. I've never really been conscious of that kind of stuff until after the fact. By the time I get to see it, it's already been in print and I'm getting my comic books and I'm like, oh, this is the new style. But that new style has been going on for 3 or 4 months. I had no idea. So,
yeah,
it's just best to just do what you do. And hopefully I have a way of doing it, an approach that's timeless, that's not stuck in any kind of era or any kind of anything, you know,
Yeah,
just it's just good for what it's needed for right now.
yeah,
for sure. I like the jazz analogy. I think Michael, even as you were just talking, it's like I think what I see in Dennis's work is just life, right? Like, a lot of times you'll start or artists will start with like a sort of rough, and then the rest of the art journey is them tightening up this rough and kind of locking it into whatever moment in time it's trying to be. But what I see in your work, Dennis, is just like it's lively, even after the inks, after the finishes, after the colors, like you can still feel the life from the pencils in the drawing. And I love
Thank
that
you.
about it.
That's nice of you. Thank you. Like I said, I'm just ripping off my heroes. So if you like me, you just love them. So there you go.
I think one of the coolest add-ons that we've got in the campaign is we're doing a sketchbook. It's called Denys Cowan Pencils and Prelims. And, it really is a great examination of his process and just how detailed and how loose, different pieces of art can be and how it all still holds together. And I think his pencils, he's been working with some great inkers. I think he's his best inker when he has the time to ink, but his pencils really have a completely different kind of energy to me.
Yeah, no, for sure. Um, I'm sitting here going, I'm looking at the campaign like, wait, did I get that thing? As if I'm not spending enough money. But so the book is a career retrospective. And so I don't want to try to go through your whole career in this 40 minutes or so that we have here.
Okay.
But I do want to spend some time just kind of talking about, I guess, a few greatest hits, right? So,
Okay.
I guess the book that puts you on the map, or I'd say the book that people talk about for you the most would be The Question. Um, and I was going through that a little bit earlier today. I've got the first omnibus. I didn't get the second one. I gotta fix that. But
Not black people. The first thing black people think is static. No black
yeah,
person's ever come up to me and said, you did The Question. Not one. It's always, you did Static. You did Static Shock. Or they find out, oh, you did Static Shock.
no,
But everyone else is The Question. Yeah.
yeah, no. So like I'm going through The Question, and it's such an adult book, right? Like you're drawing like knife fights and hostage situations, and um, it's just such a
People
gritty,
being tied up and tortured. Yeah.
right, right.
Lynching.
Just everything. But um, what was it about that book that, or because you've talked about this sort of having to find your style or really pick up the craft for that book? How did The Question change you as an artist?
I've talked about this a little bit before. Well, one, I was working with Denny O'Neil, who's one of the greatest writers in comics. But what Denny did with The Question was he eliminated a lot of things that people leaned on, or especially artists or even people who make comics lean on. There were no thought balloons. There were no sound effects at all. It was all what he said and what he did. And you were going to figure out what was going on in that story based on what he said and what he did and what the people around him said and did. But no thought balloons and no bam, pals, nothing like that. So I had to figure out a way to convey all those things without those crutches that we usually have. I couldn't just draw a guy sitting there thinking and then have the thought balloon, just draw a face and have the thought balloon figure it. No, 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 no. And I had to draw a guy who had no features. And yet somehow you had to be convinced looking at his face that he was feeling whatever it is that he was saying. Um, so I had my work cut out for me. Now, fortunately, I was young and didn't know that it was not going to be that easy to draw, you know. But it forced me to level up my game, and it also forced me to think about comic books in a different way, in a way that I was taught, but in a way I really had to pay attention to, which is that comics are about storytelling. Comic book pages are about storytelling. It's about moving people from panel to panel. It is not about making pretty pictures that you linger over and savor and have no idea what's going on in the story, but you sure love that pretty picture. It's not about that. So I had to really lean on the storytelling aspect. We did all the fight scenes that I had to choreograph and all this stuff with the question because that was it. That was the book. So I took a jump, but it was a jump out of necessity. I wasn't trying like I'm gonna get better. No, no, I just had to.
Right. And no, I mean it's evident. It's evident in the work, right? And then you go from that, and you're doing all kinds of work, right? You're on Batman. You work with just about every character there is to work on.
Yeah,
Um, but early '90s, you're like, all right, like it's time to really make some stuff happen with these black superheroes.
right.
And so, the Milestone project starts. Now, it's you, it's Michael Davis, Dwayne McDuffie, Christopher Priest, Derek Dingle,
Yes.
right?
And Reggie was there too, actually. Reggie Hudlin was there at the very beginning,
Oh,
which is
nice.
crazy, but he was. Yeah.
So once you got convinced all the guys to like really go for this with you, what would you say was the hardest part about kind of pulling the universe together?
I can't give the real answer, so I have to give a different answer. Um, I think, the hardest part was really getting everyone together all the time,
Mm,
because we had to have a lot of meetings, and that meant coordinating everybody's schedule. We all lived in New York, so that was good. But it meant a lot of, just not doing the other things, but doing that thing, you
mm.
know. It meant trying to, draw whatever I was drawing, Batman or whatever I was doing, and I'm trying to do this, you know. That's what it meant. So that was the toughest part, was managing your regular work, but doing this project at the same time. So your regular work didn't suffer, but you were pouring everything into this new thing.
Yeah, the way the story's told, I mean, it's a lot of late nights, right? I've not
There
seen
were.
this Bible, but I've seen excerpts and I'm like, there's no way that comes together quickly, right?
No. No.
And so, but you guys are freelancers, right? Like
Right.
I feel like people forget that about comic artists. It's like you are paid for the work you do and nothing else.
Right.
So to be putting all of this together in the after hours
It was a lot.
and then not knowing if it's gonna work, like you
Yeah.
just had to have the audacity.
I mean, you have the blind faith of youth. How could this possibly fail? This is the greatest idea in the world. Yeah, so there's that part driving you on, but you're 29 years old. You're 28 and 30 years old. So everything's possible.
Yeah.
And that's how we were then.
So speaking of Milestone, just this is kind of a random question, right? But I know you guys didn't start as Milestone. And I know your son's name is Miles, right? Is
Right.
that where the name Milestone came from? Or how did you guys decide on Milestone as a name?
No, we were originally called Creative Partners Limited, which was not the best name in the whole world. And who came up with the name Milestone? It wasn't, I don't know. It wasn't, I don't know if it was me. I don't remember going, I know Milestone, but I don't remember anyone really saying that.
Mm,
Miles, my son Miles is named after Miles Davis, not my company.
mm,
The company's name, Milestone. I mean, I think it came off the Miles Davis album too, Milestones, I swear.
mm.
Because there was no other thing that we had that was a connection that would be that cool. Even though we were creating a milestone, I don't think we thought of it that way.
Yeah.
We were looking for a cool name and that was it. Dwayne probably is the one who came up with it because he usually came up with, you know, those kinds of things.
Nice. No, there's a lot of musical references in Milestone
Yes,
history, right? Like Don't Start Now, Won't Be None.
right.
Um, all the things. And then you've done books with Prince, you've done all sorts of musical projects, Liquid
Yeah.
Swords we talked about before.
Yeah.
Um, this is super random. Your top three acts, any genre, just who are you listening to? If there's a Denys Cowan playlist, who's on it?
Well, Public Enemy was always on it, especially now. Um, Probably Soundgarden would be one,
Mm,
you know. And God, what's the third one? What would be the third one? The third all around one that would be just so sad that it'd probably be Jimi Hendrix,
nice.
like
My mother met Terminator X. He came to her school. She's a teacher. He came to her school for like a visit for something. And she calls me. She's like, "Do you know who Terminator X is?" I'm like,
yes.
"Yes, absolutely." How do you not know who Terminator X is? Like, you're from New York. Like, you're not that old. But anyway, uh, so Michael, you've been assembling this book for a while. How close would you say you are to having the finished product being ready to send to the printer?
He's frozen.
I'm sorry, my connection
Oh,
dumped out for a second.
oh, got you. I was just saying, like, how close do you think you are to the finished product?
Uh, I think we're pretty close. There's probably a couple more passes to do to determine and finalize the final art. We've got one more pass of proofreading, but we're in good shape. I mean, the book is written, it's been designed, it's been assembled. Now it's a matter of, just nailing down the final selections for
Yep.
everything.
Nice. And so, looking at this campaign, let me get off the page with my card on info on it, and I'll just share this quick. All right. So you guys are watching us on YouTube. Now you can see that we're here on the Kickstarter page for Graphic Samurai, the art of Denys Cowan. And man, this book just looks cool. Here's a question. Denys, how did you decide on this signature? Like the sort of Cowan stack?
I don't know. I just made it up. I swear. This is like like Bill had a signature and Walt Simonson had his signature and Howard Chaykin had a signature, and I couldn't figure out what to do. And usually I just sign my name in some kind of script.
Mhm.
I'm like, well, I need something that's like a stamp or something that I could do. So that's what I ended up doing. Just drawing the COWAN like that. And I've used it ever since. Just simple to do. But I just needed to do something. I couldn't figure out what. So I just drew my name, the letters, and a box around it. That was innovative design work.
Listen, it's timeless. It looks great. So
So
go ahead.
since we just crossed the mark and unlocked the third
It looks like it, right? We did, didn't we?
stretch goal,
We
yeah,
did.
yeah. I just put in the chat what we're gonna go out with the final stretch goal.
Okay.
It's a preliminary illustration of the dust jacket cover that will come uh, for everybody if we can hit this fourth and final stretch goal.
Oh, that is amazing. So let me share this then.
So
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 we've
you're
got
getting it first. I mean, you're not going to put it up until tomorrow, I guess, but you
right.
you are actually getting it before anybody.
Wow. That is awesome. So we've got the dust jacket design, obviously by Denys Cowan. We've got Static here. I'm trying to see if I can make out everyone.
Let's
I
see if you
see
can make it out.
Deathlock,
I can help you. You got static,
Static.
Deathlock, you got the question, you
Hmm.
have steel, you have Dominique Laveau and the other guy from Voodoo Child.
Okay.
You have hardware, you have Icon and Rocket. So
Nice.
Icon, Rocket, hardware, Black Panther
Hmm. Wow.
And then on the cover,
Hmm.
is Power Man and Iron Fist fighting
Got
a
it.
whole bunch of dudes.
Nice.
Right above them is our boy Static, Virgil.
So we've talked about like you not really liking to look back, right? But how fun is it to put together like a sort of mash piece like this and just kind of play greatest hits a little bit?
Um, it was fun. It was okay. I mean, we decided to do this wraparound cover, and then immediately was like, well, what to do, how to do it. So we found some inspirational sources, and I just played off of those. Um, I'm not usually a fan of group covers where you have like 20,000 characters all doing things because I'm lazy and I like just drawing one dude or one lady or a couple doing something.
Hmm.
That being said, as I started getting into this more and more, and this went through a couple of revisions, it became more and more of a piece that I was really starting to dig. So, um, this one's good. There's even more characters I could put on there that I've done, and I've thought about that. Fight for Tomorrow characters,
Hmm.
Shaft, all those covers, Mace Windu that I did for 6 issues. Just there's so much. You can't put everything. So,
Right. My friend Ben has a page from your Mace Windu run, and he doesn't let me forget that he owns a page of Denys Cowan art. Um, he bought another page from you at GalaxyCon. I can't remember what it was from. It was some kind of like Black Lives Matter promo type thing that he bought.
wow.
But I'm excited because of all the add-ons and things that are on this campaign. There were a couple of pages of original art up for
Yes.
sale. I don't know if either of them are up for grabs. I know one of them is not because I grabbed it. Um, but there is a lot up for grabs on this campaign. Like just looking at the rewards, right? Like you can get a signed edition of the book. Um, you've got, oh wait, let me share the screen. My bad, guys. But you've got the signed edition of the book. You can get a hardcover, you can get a paperback, if I'm not mistaken. There's a digital copy available. And then there's remarks available. That's a lot of work for your hands, man. Like that's,
Yes.
but yeah,
Yeah, I
there's a
didn't agree to any of this, so but whatever.
Bad memory getting old.
Yeah, right.
but I mean you guys can see there's a few even like previews of just how the book is assembled. Um, like we were talking about musical
Yeah,
references and
yeah,
inspirations. We've got that
yeah.
here on the page.
That was those albums are called payment to me. That's how Rich Butler used to pay me. He used to pay me in albums. So
Well, look, he paid you with some great ones. We've got, was that The Secret Life of Plants? And then Songs in the Key of Life?
yep, Songs in the Key of Life and Earth, Wind and Fire's Gratitude. Definitely I got those from him. Yep.
Nice.
Two double albums, especially the Songs in the Key of Life and the Gratitude album, which I played to death. I thought all albums were like that. So
Hmm.
imagine my surprise.
Yeah, nah, you got some of the greatest hits, is what you got. This is a really cool hardware page here. And Michael, you didn't just interview Denys for this project, but there are other people that you went and got words from. Who are some of the other people that are featured in the book?
His sister, Bill Sienkiewicz, Mike Gold, Butch Geis, Howard Chaykin, who wrote the foreword. Um, Joe Illich,
Mm.
Arvell, you talked to Arvell?
Arvell, Keith Pollard. Uh, yeah, we talked to quite a few. And Derek Dingle, talked to quite a few people.
Chantal Donice, my
Yeah,
ex, who
yeah,
was there at the beginning of Milestone and helped shape a lot of it.
right, right.
And
I'm
Michael,
gonna,
go ahead.
hmm?
Oh, sorry,
I
go
was
ahead.
just saying, I'm gonna drop one more piece in the chat for you.
Okay.
That isn't at this point, it's not in the book, but it's in another book. The first crowdfunding campaign that we did was a book called Fargo: Hell on Wheels, and Howard Chaykin did the adaptation and wrote and drew it. And Carl Weathers, who was a really good friend, was a supporter of the project in several ways, and he passed in February, and so we decided to dedicate the book to him. And I
Mm.
asked Denys if he could come up with an illustration for the dedication, and this was the piece that he came up with. I love this piece.
Oh, that is awesome. Um, man, again, I don't know how you do it. Um, listen, it's you. I did a review of a the Jimi Hendrix graphic novel that Tom Mandrake drew. Uh,
Sure.
and it's the same sort of deal. Like it's just like I don't know how you can put that man in any kind of situation, but it's gonna come out looking like what it's supposed to look like. Um, but man, Carl Weathers, Apollo Creed, Action Jackson.
I'm jealous. I'm jealous of his Jimi Hendrix book. I'm like I should have done that book, but that's all right. I'll get one. Maybe I'll do a Prince. Not already did that. I got to think of something I got to do to get back. I can't have Tom Mandrake doing Jimi Hendrix books. What's that all about? Next thing he'll be doing Public Enemy books.
Well, I hear there may be talks of a sequel, so
Yeah, right. Let me put my name in the hat.
right. No, that image is great. You did those images for the Milestone Generations documentary as well,
Yeah,
of all the founders.
yeah.
And I don't know, man, like, and even these cards, I've got a little milestone set up over here. So I've got my Dwayne McDuffie card. Um, but it's like, yeah, I don't know. You like we obviously we know you for drawing superheroes, but I'm like, You could have done like life drawing and been great.
Oh, thank you. So nice. Thank you.
No problem at all. So, as we sit here, the Graphic Samurai Art of Denys Cowan campaign, it ends on Friday at 10 p.m. So you guys have just over what, 18 hours to get your pledges in to secure your copy of this book. Um, because as far as I know, when the campaign ends, the book is done. Or are you guys gonna press for like bookstore distribution?
Yeah, well, actually, we are going to look at broader distribution, but once the campaign ends, Kickstarter recently employed a new feature called Late Pledge because a lot of people find out about a campaign after it's over. So we're going to keep it open for a while, at least a few weeks, and a lot of the add-ons won't be available, but the book itself will continue to be available. So hopefully, people that'll find out about it later, like, oh man, I want to get this thing. It used to be you were just out of luck until there was a reprint or it came out in a larger edition. But now there's at least a 3 or 4 week opportunity post the campaign for latecomers to get on board.
Nice. Now, Mike, you had the privilege of putting all this together, and you got to be up close and personal with Dennis's art, in a way that, many have not. So if you have to pick, let's say, three projects to represent Dennis's career, like the must-read Denys Cowan books, what would you say those are?
Um, for books, let's see, I would say definitely the Question run, the Deathlock run, and for me, the first Hardware run.
Mhm.
But it's hard for me to say that and leave out Voodoo Child, which I think is an overlooked uh, masterpiece. I mean, he really went to some places he had never gone before. Um, Fight for Tomorrow is he and Kent Williams are a great team, and it's great to see them work together. Um, there are a number of it's hard to just say three. I could probably come up with 7 or 8.
Mhm.
But I think those three, in terms of foundational, to give you an idea of who he is and how his art changes and evolves, would be a good jumping off point.
I would agree. I would agree with those three. Um, I think for me, I've got just a special affinity for these posters over here that came with the collector's editions of those first Milestone books. Um, and then even Hardware Season 1, like that was the book for me that was like, oh no, Milestone is like back, like it's back for real. And so that book means a lot to me. Um, Speaking of, right, Dennis, like I'm a big fan. I don't think you know like why I'm a big fan, right? Like so for me, obviously I kind of rediscovered this Milestone stuff as an adult, and that was cool. And then somehow you saw one of my videos and was like, "Oh, thank you for the video." And I was like, "Oh, that's cool." But the moment that made me a Denys Cowan fan for life, uh, my daughter was born prematurely almost 4 years ago in March. And I was like a nervous wreck because my wife was having a C-section and I couldn't be there. And so I just like kind of scribbled this little drawing of me holding a baby while I'm in the waiting room. And then I ended up posting that like the next day, like once everything was all good. And you commented on that, like prayers for your family, like congratulations and all that. And I was like, he didn't have to stop his day to do that. And that was it. I was like, I will buy
Oh,
everything this man does for the rest of life.
oh,
Like
it's so nice of you.
that was nice of
And it
you.
all worked out. Everything worked out. See, so,
Absolutely.
you know,
Absolutely. Now she's terrorizing everybody.
yeah. So now that's what you get.
That's funny. But yeah, no, I had to clean up this room before the interview because she's throwing
Tornado
stuff
had gone
everywhere.
through it. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Welcome to fatherhood. It's so awesome.
Right. Now we're doing it again. But yeah, I just had to tell you that, share that. 'Cause I didn't know if I don't know if you even knew like what that meant to me, but I appreciate it.
Well, there you go. Of course. Always the
But
best for you.
Thank you, man. Thank you. So, with that, um, trying to think of like a last question, right? Again, I'm not trying to fit your whole career in this conversation. That's not possible. That's why we've got this book coming. Um, but I guess I will ask you, like, even though you don't like looking back as much, what would you say is the most, or the thing that has meant the most to you in your career? Like maybe the work that you feel is the most impactful or meaningful.
Probably the milestone material, all the things that we did, not just the books that I drew or the characters I designed, but just the concept of the whole thing and what we were able to accomplish. Um, and the impact that we had. That's probably the thing that I'm most proud of, past drawing anything or, you know, being that comic book artist guy. It's milestone and all the things it stands for. That's probably what I'm most proud of right now.
It's definitely a lot to be proud of.
Sir.
Um, Again, because I came in the picture, what, 30 years later. I mean, I'd watched Static Shock and I remember uh so all right, this is gonna sound crazy. So I had cable growing up. So I grew up with Cartoon Network, right? But my cousin did not. So my cousin was very much on like Kids WB Saturday mornings, like, and so when we went to his house, that's what we were watching. It's like Batman Beyond and Justice
Right,
League
right,
and Static Shock.
right.
And I had never seen a black superhero, like not like that, like a black kid on TV. Like, and Shaq is in episodes, like it wasn't just like the black kid on TV, because there was plenty of those. Like we had Bear and Jamal and all kinds of cartoons. But Static Shock was just like a revelation. Like I didn't know cartoons could be for us. Like I was playing Batman, you
Yeah,
know?
sure, sure.
And to so I remember how that felt as a kid. And so for all these years later to find like, oh wait, these are comics. And when I read, it was Icon that I read first. And it was like, oh no, like these are like really for us. It's like, I think the way I've described it, right? Like people will always be like, oh well, such and such knows this character well, right? Like it was a well written Batman story because the writer or the artist, they just get Batman. While reading Milestone stuff, I'm like, whoever wrote this like gets me. Like this feels like my neighborhood. This feels like my family, people I grew up
Mm,
with,
mm.
right? And so it's like that stuff is just it's on a different level for me, right? Like, and so I'm just glad that you guys had the wherewithal, not just to say, huh, that's a crazy idea. Somebody will come around to it, but to sit those late nights and to really make it happen and then continue pushing forward, even all these years later. Like, it means a lot. I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. It's very nice of you. Such kind words. Thank you. Thank you
Uh,
so much.
no problem at all. So, um, well, before we go, I don't really have a nice final parting question, but I do want to just make sure we encourage the audience, right? Uh, Mike says it's going to go into late pledges, and it might. That's cool. But what I need you all to do is to go out and back this campaign right now because I need to hit that $50,000 stretch goal so we can get this dust jacket on this book. Like I don't want to hear like, oh well, I'll get it later. Listen, Friday's payday. It's going through Friday.
Going through
Your
Friday.
your direct deposit will hit.
Do it.
Go ahead and do it.
Part with that 100 and something bucks. Come on now.
Listen,
Yeah.
man.
We appreciate all the support from everybody. We really do. And all the support that people have given us so far. We are very grateful. And thank you so much for having us on your show, man. This has
No
been
problem. No problem at all.
good. It's been
Uh,
good.
Yeah, appreciate you, man.
no problem at all. It was great having you both. Dennis, it was great meeting you in New York. And
Yes, that was cool.
you guys are both welcome back anytime.
Thank you.
No problem at
Thanks a
all.
lot. And comics are dope.
Comics are
Absolutely.
dope. Comics are dope. That's right.
So, guys, well, I told you, I don't know what you're doing after you listen to this conversation. Hopefully, you're going to Kickstarter and you're back in this campaign because I said so. But after that, stay safe, stay awesome, and read something dope today. Peace.